Alright everyone, welcome back to the Proof of Concept. I'm Jared Dechival, and this is my proof of concept. This episode 5 of season 1, we continue the conversation about the role of next generation firewalls in a zero trust network architecture. This first segment of the proof of concept is called executive brief. We're going to give an executive briefing to the leaders of IT and cybersecurity. Let's get started. What is the role of a next generation firewall in a zero trust network architecture? We have seen that. We have seen the meaning of a next generation firewall. We have also seen the meaning of a zero trust network architecture. We have also started to unveil some of the features and some of the promises of a next generation firewall. If you don't have a next generation firewall or next generation firewalls in your IT infrastructure, why should you replace your stateful firewalls with next-gen firewalls? Today, we're going to dive into a more complex topic, the topic of SSL decryption. Traffic needs to be decrypted. A while back, it was necessary and it was a good thing for traffic to be encrypted. But as threats evolve, encryption at times can get weaponized against your cyber infrastructure. The idea of encrypting your traffic is you prevent the wrong people from seeing the content of the traffic. And so you build a relative tunnel where the packets are inside of this tunnel, and only the sender and the receiver can see this content because only they have the right key to open this tunnel. Threat actors have determined that institutions are encrypting their traffic, especially the web traffic. They decided to encrypt their payloads as well, their malicious payloads. As a result of that, bad traffic now can be delivered in an encrypted fashion. That way, if a bad actor has a piece of malware, they will encrypt this threat and deliver it to your environment. As a result of that, your next generation firewalls or your security appliances, even if they are in the path of this transaction or this malicious transaction, they will not necessarily be able to protect you against it. Why is that? That is because it's encrypted. And the whole idea of encryption is that no one else can see what it is or what the content is unless they have the key to decrypt the traffic. The promise of the SSL decryption is that the next generation firewall being in the middle of this traffic will not allow it to go through unless it decrypts the traffic. Then once it decrypts the traffic, it is now able to see the content that's inside of this encrypted payload. And if the content is malicious, then it will take negative actions against that content. But it requires quite a bit of elbow grease. And you need to make sure that you have a firm understanding, or your team has a firm understanding of how to not only implement but operate a deployment that has SSL decryption. This does not always work without any problem. Some type of traffic cannot be decrypted, and if you decrypt them, it creates problems for the environment or for the traffic. So you've got to make exceptions for traffic that cannot be decrypted. And typically, the server that you're initiating the traffic to will tell you if this traffic allows decryption or not. But for the most part, you're going to want to make sure that in your next generation firewall deployment, as you move towards a zero trust network architecture, you decrypt all traffic that can be decrypted. That is because unless you decrypt the traffic, when it is encrypted, your firewall will not be able to help you, even if this traffic is malicious. This is the proof of concept. In this segment is the executive brief, where we provide executives and IT and cybersecurity leaders with the insight that they need to protect the environment and to position themselves and their team for success. So I mentioned one thing. A lot of people would say, oh, well, I'll buy this next generation firewall and I'll deploy these in my environment and I'll send my team to training. I believe training is a bad idea when it comes to IT and cybersecurity. And why is that? I've been in this field for quite a while. And I have not only hired professionals, but I've also been hired. I've seen people go to training. I've been sent to training. I've allocated budgets for my staff to go to training at times. But there is one common theme that I keep hearing, is that training is useless because training is traditional. What it means is that on day one, the trainer opens the book on the first page and starts lecturing. And typically, an IT training lasts 5 days. That's 40 hours. You send your staff to some place for the entire week, 5 days, and they'll stay there for 40 hours. Every day they'll have 8 hours where they listen to a lecture. Now, it is not good enough to just listen to a lecture. You see how I just talked to you about the SSL decryption? And you understand at a high level what SSL decryption is. And once you watch the technical deep dive segment that's coming in a few minutes, you will have a more technical understanding of how SSL decryption works. But that's all it is, an understanding, not a mastery. You want to have complete mastery over the technology that you maintain. That way, when problems occur, you will be able to resolve them fast. An outage is not something that you can take time to resolve. If the institution relies on the technology, then when there is an outage, you want to make sure that you resolve that outage very quickly. And for that to be possible, your team needs to have not training, but exposure. One of the things that you want to do is to make sure that your team has access to the technology before the technology is implemented. Instead of hiring a company to come and implement, you should hire a company that comes and helps your team implement. You should allocate some amount of time for your team to learn and to be exposed to this technology. Before it goes into production, your team and the executive team, they are operating on this new technology. And here's what I mean. Let's take, for example, that you are moving from Cisco to Fortinet. And you had Cisco Catalyst switches, Cisco Wireless, Cisco NAC, etc., Cisco Identity and Service Engine, and Cisco Firepower maybe, or maybe some other firewall. But now you decide that you're going to have Fortinet. Okay, that's probably a good idea, maybe not a good idea. I don't know the use case for your environment. But you have decided that you're going to replace your Cisco with Fortinet. Instead of buying Fortinet right now and calling an IT and cybersecurity company to come and implement that for you, what you should do is to buy a very small amount of Fortinet. And what that means, you would buy one switch, and in my opinion, 1 or 2 access points in a small 40-gate firewall. And then you would implement this. And your team would work on this technology. And you as the executive or the leader of the team, you also would operate on this new network, which will be the network of the future where the whole institution will operate. But for now, you operate on this network. Your team implements this network for you. It's a small network. The institution doesn't rely on it yet. It's a year away from the time when you're going to cut over to this new technology. So your team will have 1 year, right, to get familiar with this new technology. I think that's a good idea. And that's what I would call IT and cybersecurity exposure. This is proof of concept. And this segment is the executive brief. In this second segment, we're going to show you how to implement SSL decryption in a zero trust network architecture. Conceptually, it is where packets that are encrypted, SSL packets that are encrypted, and the purpose of this decryption is for you to be able to is for your next generation firewalls to be able to see the content of the traffic. Understand that in modern IT and cybersecurity infrastructure, it is the content that matters. You need to be aware of the content that is traversing your network. And that's what you should focus on, the content. The truth lies in the content. Before we had these capabilities, we used to care about the source. We used to care about the destination. You used to care about the ports. But we have learned a long time ago that these techniques are insufficient to defend your IT or cybersecurity infrastructure against modern threats. Why is that true? When you used to care about the destination of the traffic, you would say, if traffic is going to country X, we know country X is an adversarial country, we're going to deny. Well, no problem. The threat actor that understands now that you have labeled country X as an adversarial country, they no longer put their servers in country X. It is easy for them now to put their servers in country whatever that you deem a friendly country. As a result of that, you're going to keep blocking traffic to country X, but the threat has been moved to country Y, which is a friendly country to you. You see, now you're tricked into allowing this traffic because you think, it's going to country Y. Let's think about the United States. We are in the United States, right? And so someone would say, if traffic's going to the United States, it's good traffic. It's going to Canada, good traffic. And if it's coming to Russia, bad traffic. Well, a threat actor who's in Russia now will say, oh, I'm going to position myself in the United States, or I'm going to position myself in Canada or in Mexico, in a friendly country, because that's easy now. It's an easy thing for them to move their servers from an adversarial country into a friendly country. When we used to care about the source of the traffic, it was a bad idea as well. The same thing that was just explained, that there's a friendly in adversarial countries, and you realize that these things are no longer a limit, right? In terms of geographical location and source and destination and stuff like that. And the ports as well, it's a bad idea. We used to say, oh, port 443, good port 80, deny, it's not encrypted, da. Okay, none of that is relevant in the current era anymore. What's relevant now is, what is it? What's the traffic? If you can't protect based on where it's coming from, where it's going, what port it's being transacted on, you need to care about what it is. Is it malware? Is it grayware? Is it spyware? Is it benign traffic, good traffic, right? Is it traffic that your institution needs to allow? Even if it's good traffic, that does not mean you should allow it, because you may not have any business allowing X, Y, and Z application. So next generation firewalls give you the capability now to not only determine who the user is, what the traffic is, but even if the traffic is encrypted, now you can decrypt and see what's inside, for the purpose of you allowing based on truly the content and really what really matters when it comes to IT and cybersecurity in the modern days. So to do that, you're going to use your firewall as an SSL broker. And here's what that means. Think about if you have traffic coming from a source. Let's say that's a PC inside of your environment, and it's going to a server on the internet, maybe Amazon.com, or some server in some country somewhere. So PC goes through firewall to get to server on the internet. PC is on the LAN, firewall is at the edge, server is on the WAN, on the internet. Well, the PC would establish an encrypted traffic with this server. And even if the traffic's going through the firewall wouldn't be aware of what the traffic is, and it wouldn't be able to protect you. Now the firewall, once SSL decryption is enabled, will stand in the middle. And when the PC decides to start this session with the server, the first thing it's going to do is to hit the firewall. And the firewall now will be able to stop the traffic and pretend to be the server, decrypt the traffic, and inspect. If it likes the traffic, it repackages and it forwards to the server. If it doesn't like the traffic, it stops the traffic and it tells the PC that you can't send the traffic. Now, this whole magic happens as a result of PKI, public key infrastructure. You have options when it comes to that. Most institutions will have an internal private PKI infrastructure. That means you have your own, at least one certificate authority that issues certificates to the different devices on your environment, right? And so when the PC is going to establish this session with this web server, the PC is going to use its certificate in the certificate of the web server. Now that the firewall is going to be in the middle, the PC is going to use its certificate in the certificate of the firewall. So the firewall needs to have the ability to reissue another certificate on behalf of the PC for the purpose of establishing this SSL session with the server somewhere on the internet. Look at this firewall here that we have here. First thing you need to have a certificate. That's a root certificate. Now, there are two ways that you can have that, as you already know. You can have your own internal PKI infrastructure where you get the subordinate CA from your root CA and then import into the firewall. Or you can just create a root CA right here in the firewall. You're going to need two. You're going to need one for forward trust and one for forward untrust. You can see here that I have already created this root CA, but here's how I do it in the Palo Alto firewall. Generate, and from here I'll put the name, and let's say POC, so I can remember to delete, forward trust. That's just the name. And the common name, let's say poc.com. And of course you would put a real fully qualified domain name here. And it's not gonna be signed by any of the CAs that I have here or any external CA. I'm gonna make this itself a root CA. and I just click here, certificate authority, and that makes it a root CA. Of course, you can add other attributes and you can change cryptographic settings, etc., etc. But for the purpose of demonstration, this is all we need. Now, I generate this POC forward trust CA right here, and it's going to be in the list of CAs that we have here, or in the list of certificates that we have here. But we need a CA, a certificate authority. Now, you're going to do that twice. You need 2 of them. And you're going to use one as for your forward trust, and you click on that CA again, you see, and you can select forward trust certificate. You shouldn't check both. You need 2. You need one for forward trust and one for forward untrust. And so the second one that you do, you're going to not select forward trust, but this time you're going to select forward untrust, okay? This is for demonstration, but you should never have it that way where you have both of them selected, forward trust and forward untrust. Okay, that was just for demonstration. Look at this one here, forward trust. I call it SSL Decrypt forward trust. And here I select forward trust as well. In this other one, I call SSL Decrypt forward untrust, and I select forward untrust. And now that you have that, understand that you have other options. You could have imported this CA from your PKI infrastructure, right? And there's a procedure for that. In the interest of time, we are using the self-signed certificate from the Palo Alto, and that's Palo Alto's recommended best practice anyway. So now that you have this here, next thing you need to do is to create a policy. Come into your policies here and create a decryption policy. See, you have your security policies, net policies, QoS, etc. But what we are interested in now is decryption policy. And so click add. I already have one here. You click add here, and you put a name, you put the source. The source will be at least the source zone. You should never say any. You should put the exact source zone. The destination, you put the exact destination zone. Quite likely this is going to the internet. Now understand that this can be outbound in the sense that it's going from the LAN to the WAN, or it can be inbound as well. Inbound is a different procedure, and we'll go more in depth into that in the next segment, because I think SSL decryption is such a big topic that we can't just cover it in 10 minutes. So you need source zone at least, source destination at least, but you can also have subnets. You can have user groups, device, etc., etc. But at least you need to have the source zone and the destination zone. Now, service, you can put any, or you can specify the specific services that you want or URLs that you want this traffic to match. Options here, you can have no decrypt, that means it's not going to decrypt, or decrypt. In the case where you make an exception, you're going to choose no decrypt. That means don't decrypt this traffic for me, please. Decrypt everything else. You know you have to make some exceptions because not all traffic can be decrypted. That's it. That's all you need here. And if you have a log server, you can forward this log to, etc. And you click OK. I can't click OK because I didn't choose any source, any destination, and I don't even have a name for this. But I already have a rule here, which I will open for you. Now this rule will be what matches the traffic. Okay. Now, in addition to that, you need to make sure that you take this CA, both of those CAs. You need to take the CA that you created here, export that CA, and to export, you click export here, and import that in the trusted root CA in your certificate store on your device, and that's how the trust is established. Now, once this traffic shows up, this firewall, this Palo Alto firewall, will use this forward trust CA to issue another certificate so that it can continue the rest of the traffic with the server where the traffic is destined. Folks, this was the technical deep dive, and I think it can be long, and I don't think a podcast has to be long. I think you just have to present enough information and make it complete, and I think that's complete information. We're going to go in more technical depth next episode, and that's going to be the conclusion of the first season. It has 6 episodes, and obviously it's a big trial because that's the first time I'm doing this sort of stuff, and I'm learning a lot about how to do it, but I think I got better very, very fast. So I promised that I would mention again why I think IT and cybersecurity training is a bad idea and why exposure is the way to go. Well, obviously, you see, this is exposure. Somebody could tell you about that. You could have read about that on the internet, and all of the things that you need, they are published on the internet. And I could do a quick search here, how to implement SSL decryption. That's how IT works. You see, Palo Alto leads the way here, and you can quickly see how Palo Alto says to do that. You can see lots of YouTube videos, but all of these will not do anything for you. Watching all of the YouTube videos and watching all of the videos and take all of the trainings in the world will not do anything for you unless you do it on a real Palo Alto firewall. So, training will do what YouTube would do for you. Training would just repeat what the articles that are on the internet would say. And Palo Alto publishes everything that you need to know about a Palo Alto firewall. And they don't just publish that on the internet. More importantly, they put a contextual guide for you as you operate your Palo Alto firewall. The Book of Palo Alto follows you right here. I call it the Book of Palo Alto. It's the same articles that are published on the internet and sometimes even more. You click on this plus sign right here, and contextually, wherever you are, it tells you how to do that. You see that? So while you're here on the Palo Alto firewall, on the certificate, if you click here, it gives you knowledge or contextual information about how Palo Alto certificates work. You can see that right here, right? And anywhere you happen to be, you'll see it. So the information is vastly available on the internet. The training, on the other hand, just repeats this information that you can read for yourself, or these YouTube videos or Udemy videos that you can watch for yourself for free. That doesn't help because that's not what is going to make you a master at that craft. What's going to make you a master is to do it over and over and over every day. And that's how you're going to discover the different problems that can exist, and you're going to learn how to solve them. And by doing that, you will gain the proficiency that is needed for you to operate the environment. So, training cannot give you the exposure. Only, in my opinion, hands-on exposure can give you the tools that you need to achieve this mastery. I think for 2024, we need to replace the word IT or cybersecurity training with IT or cybersecurity exposure. This is the final segment. It's called Cyber Job Alert, and we call it that way for a reason. This is where we alert the IT pros, regardless of the level that they're in, about the jobs that are out there in IT and in cybersecurity. In this Cyber Job Alert segment, today, the 5th episode of Season 1, I bring good news. The good news that I bring is that IT and cybersecurity are doing very well, in that there are way more jobs than there are professionals out there. And if you're in the job market looking for a new role, I don't think it is going to be difficult. But as I speak to colleagues and peers and mentees, I learned one thing. The skill that you master determines the amount of opportunities that are available to you. I spoke to someone I worked with a while back over the week, and they mentioned to me that they've been out of work for about 4 weeks. But there are there's a surplus of more than 100,000 jobs. So there are more than 100,000 jobs than there are professionals to fill these jobs. Yet there are some professionals who can't find a job. That is because sometimes the skills that they have are not the skills that are in demand right now. What are the skills that are in demand, in my opinion? Networking, network security, and system engineering. Now, obviously, the higher you climb, the less the competition becomes. A senior professional who has been working in networking and network security, and who's a very seasoned firewall expert, networking expert, who's been doing this for about 8-10 years, these people, they never have a job problem. That is because there are fewer of them than there are entry-level professionals. But there are still more jobs for everyone in IT and cybersecurity in general. So I'd say to you, if you're out there looking for a job in cybersecurity, as this is the trend, everybody wants to work in cybersecurity, but you need to realize that cybersecurity is such a vast field that it doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. And the employers are always looking for someone who can contribute something in something that is difficult to achieve. If you're in cybersecurity and you find out that your job is something that you can learn in one day, you show up, they give you on-the-job training for one day, and that's all you're going to be doing, then it is not really a career. It is not much different than any other job in the service industry or other industries where the jobs are very volatile. Why do I say that? That is because if they can teach you how to do the job in one day or 1 week, it is not difficult to find someone to replace you, and someone who will take a lower pay, and they will just train that person in one day. But to know how to build networks, to know how to secure networks, you can't learn how to do that in 1 month, 6 months, a year is not enough, in my opinion. It takes a decent amount of time and dedication for you to become a very solid network engineer, network architect, network security engineer, system engineer, etc., etc. As a result of that, even if you're not at the top tier, if you have these skills, you're very sought after. So if you're out there looking for a job and you find it difficult, think about increasing your networking and network security skills. Next generation technologies are here to stay. SASE, or network access controls. These things are here to help secure the LAN, the WAN, the cloud, the endpoints, the emails, etc. And it's not going to end anytime soon. So, in addition to learning networking, I would advise as well that you learn how to secure networks. Learn next generation firewalls. You must know next generation firewalls. And the two most popular next generation firewalls right now are Palo Alto and Fortinet. Fortinet calls theirs FortiGate. But at least you need to know some next generation firewall. Even if it's firepower, no disrespect, but firepower is not a leader in the next generation enterprise firewall segment. They're a challenger. Checkpoint is a leader, but the market share for Checkpoint is much lower compared to FortiGate and to Palo Alto. So if the choice is all yours, start with Palo Alto as the leader, absolute leader, with the biggest market share, and then go down to FortiGate as well. I know it's not going to be easy, but if you go about getting exposure instead of just training, you're going to get there faster. Now, training means that you just watch videos and you just listen, it's conceptual. Whereas exposure is not conceptual. It is technical. You get involved, you do it, and you learn hands-on. So, this is a difficult thing to do, and that has been one of the problems of the industry for the longest. People go to college only to find out that the knowledge that they acquire in college is too theoretical for it to be useful for them in the real world. People go to boot camps. Oh la la, boot camp is one of probably the worst way to do that. Why? That's because most of the time it's focused on training for some certificate, and you're going to go there for 1 week and cram for 1 week. You learn nothing, absolutely nothing in 1 week. You need a lot more time, and you need time to process the information and to see the different issues that can come up and help solve them. And that's why I think we should not do training. We should focus on exposure. This was the Cyber Job Alert, and I think the outlook for the IT and cybersecurity job markets is quite strong. As the president would say, the state of the union is strong. The state of the job market for IT and cybersecurity professionals is absolutely strong, but you have to have technical skills. I've built some of the toughest networks in the world. In the beginning, it took me a long time because in my mind, oh, that's so hard. That's for those people over there. They're so smart and this and that. And when I started to do it and I got the exposure, I realized, oh la la, it wasn't really that hard. It just appears hard because it's a lot of concept to acquire. And also, you need to do it hands-on. But get started now on networking and on next generation firewalls. Folks, networking here means learn routing and switching, especially Cisco routing and switching, right? Hardcore. And learn next generation firewalls, and that means Palo Alto first and FortiGate after, and third Checkpoint, and everything else if you have time. Start with Palo Alto. Know how to build a network, know how to secure the network, and you're gonna realize that the outlook for you on a job market will be significantly better. There are more jobs than there are IT professionals, but those jobs are for those who know how to do things that are valuable for the institutions that are looking for them. I can't stress this enough. You don't need training, you need exposure. This is Proof of Concept, and I'm Jared Derival. This segment was the Cyber Job Alert, and we'll be right back next week with the final episode of the first season. And I'll start taking questions. Next week, I'll take questions. And so if you're here, I'll be able to take questions next week. And tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern sharp.